Next on Sisterhood of the Second Act.
We're going to take the word diet out of a discussion about nutrition. How do you feel about the foods you eat, or how much you weigh? Registered dietitian Tina Renick joins us today to talk about intuitive eating. And are you experiencing pelvic pain or taking medication for bladder control? There are exercises for that. Francine Noël-Ford is a doctor of physical therapy, and she treats women's health issues with physical therapy. We'll learn more about that a little bit later in the show. We'll meet these women on this edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act right after this.
I'm gonna be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids say they be looking for a thorny tree for me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
Right there began the worst day of my life. I never saw the truck coming. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. Doctors, nurses, questions, pain. My wife called Crandall and Cott. Weeks passed and they stayed with me through surgeries, through rehab, and they obtained for me a settlement that was fair and took care of me and my family. Crandall and Cott were there for me on my worst day.
Because if you're injured, we care.
Call Crandall and Cott at 1-800-LAW-8000.
In a region known for its beautiful mountain surroundings, our vibrant arts community makes the Allegheny Highlands a more colorful place to live and visit. Our passion for the arts is endless, and it's uniquely Allegheny.
Hey, it's finally time to vacation again. So here's an offer you'll want to grab quick before it's gone. 2 nights in Myrtle Beach, free. Just call 540-707-5782. 541 Travels is offering 3 days and 2 nights accommodations in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. They'll completely waive the package price. So pack for Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but when they're gone, so don't miss out. Just call 540-707-5782. That's 540-707-5782.
See where a grateful nation remembers its heroes, and where Thomas Jefferson came to relax. Where small town charm is just down the road from big outdoor adventures. Find peace and quiet, as well as the sounds of family fun. Destination Bedford is located where the Piedmont Plateau meets the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Where ordinary ends, Bedford begins.
Now from the Fox Radio Roanoke studios, this is Sisterhood of the Second Act. Welcome to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Denise Allen Membrano. Registered dietitian Tina Renick works with women over 45, many who continue to struggle with disordered eating and body image, and while navigating the hormonal and natural changes that occur in our bodies. She describes the work she does as non-diet intuitive eating with a health-minded approach that doesn't focus on weight. And Tina's here to talk with us today about nutrition as we age. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about this. You mentioned to me while we were talking that you work with people who do have eating disorders. Why are we continuing to see eating disorders even later in life?
Well, I think the biggest reason is because there continues to be so much focus on thinness, and that thin bodies are more valuable in our culture than fatter bodies. So I don't know that we ever outgrow that or get over that as we age. I think that the pressure to maintain our bodies or keep our bodies looking a certain way kind of stays with us as we age.
When people do age, even if they've been thin all of their lives, are you seeing like new patients with eating disorders? I mean,
yes, I do see some, that are postmenopausal that maybe are struggling for the first time, but mostly it's women who probably have struggled off and on throughout their lives. Maybe it began in their 20s or teens and they've gone through the different phases of life with pregnancy, childbirth, and now menopause, and the eating disorder just tends to, come back around.
Okay. So you mentioned diet culture and its rules. How have you seen that impact your clients?
Oh gosh, on every level, truly. When you think about the diet industry as I think the latest number I've read is a $76 billion a year industry.
Wow.
With a 90% fail rate, right? So
that's why it's such a big industry.
Yeah, exactly, because people keep coming back for the next, most great or whatever, greatest and latest diet. But when you see that, diet culture continues to sort of bombard us with images, whether it's movies or media or magazines, all of that, where we feel like we have to live up to some beauty standard. But diet culture just really sets a lot of the rules for what's okay and what's not. We hear a lot about good and bad food or clean eating and, lifestyle changes, but all of that is diet at the very core, right? So anytime you're not listening to your body and listening to your own cues, you're following some sort of diet or eating plan, and that is part of diet culture.
Now, what made you become a registered dietitian and then turn that into focusing on intuitive eating?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it kind of twofold. When I first got into this career, it's been about almost 25 years, it really was about, helping people be healthy and, really being a nutrition educator, right? That was sort of what I was interested in. And nutrition is something I continue to love and feel very passionate about. But through the years of working in hospitals and working in an outpatient setting and basically imparting my knowledge on others where it wasn't like a give and take, it was more, you're the expert and they're the person receiving the information. I never felt like it was something that they were actually taking in and wanting to learn about. It just felt very one-sided.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we are talking with registered dietitian Tina Renick about nutrition and nutrition as we age. So what kind of conditions do you treat through your practice?
I treat all eating disorders, so anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, which is actually the most common eating disorder that I see, and also an eating disorder called ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. And that's often seen in children primarily, but also in older people as well.
Wow. And so we've been talking about this, and you mentioned when we were talking before the interview about women aging and the hormonal changes. So as we age, how does that change what we need to take in? Or does it?
Well, that's a good question. And I think if you Google this topic, right, you'll find that hormonal changes equal a decrease in energy needs. So often what we hear as we age is you don't need to eat as much. You need less food, you need less calories. But honestly, I feel like the conventional wisdom holds. Our intake, if you're getting a good variety and balance of food over time, then your diet is probably okay. I think where we run into trouble is when we cut out entire food groups or we start restricting things or go on a very low calorie, very restrictive diet. But as far as, aging and changes in our diet, as we age, we continue to need calcium for our bones, right, to prevent osteoporosis. We need less iron in our diets because we lose menstruation. But we continue to need all of the other nutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. So it's not like we're not using that nutrition anymore, but we may have a slowdown in our metabolism and we may need fewer calories over time.
And if you're very active, you may need more calories than your friend who sits on the couch all the time. And so that leads me to my next question. You talk about your practice of being non-diet, intuitive eating, and what does that mean?
So what that means is not focusing on the number on the scale. And to me, that feels like a gentler approach to somebody changing their behaviors than having them come in every time and get weighed and, tell them you've either gained or lost a pound or 2. Our weight is supposed to fluctuate, and that's kind of how we are as humans. We have fluid changes and all of that. So that's a given. But when we focus more on behaviors, when we look at, when you're eating, how you're eating, where you're eating, all of those things. And then we talk about the what, and we talk about balance, and we talk about variety. We're working on more of like what's going into their eating versus what the number is on the scale.
So you say it's health-minded and you don't focus on weight. How do you determine what's best for your client, or how do they help you determine what's best?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think often their goals, if they are not weight related, they might have some other goal like lowering their cholesterol or lowering their blood pressure or gaining some endurance and more energy. So we kind of gauge their improvement or them kind of moving toward their goals based on those factors versus like just the scale. But honestly, I really try to get work on goals with clients based on where they are. They're not my goals, they're theirs. So I really try to make sure that it is their idea.
So for people listening or watching today, what 3 things can they do to improve their health through intuitive eating? And how would you help them along that path? Before you answer that question, what do people need to do while they eat to be intuitive eaters?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Tune in for the first time to your own body and what feels good to you, what tastes good to you, what sounds good to you. Intuitive eating is about not following rules, but kind of looking inward and seeing what how your body responds to certain foods. So that would be the first thing, really neutralizing food. So in other words, try to take away those ideas around good or bad food and think about food more as food and how it nourishes your body and how it feels in your body. And lastly, I would say find some movement that feels good to you. Not exercise, which often we consider, that calories in, calories out model. But when you find movement that feels joyful or that feels really good to your body, you're going to be more likely to do it and you'll reap the benefits from that. So those would be the biggest things I would say to focus in on. There are several books about intuitive eating that you can find on Amazon that are wonderful. And they really kind of take you through the 10 principles of intuitive eating, which are, for example, like, listening to your hunger and fullness and shutting down the diet police, even if it lives in your own head, finding some mindful movement that feels good to you.
Great. And I will get the names of those books from you and put them in today's show notes. Thank you, Tina, so much for being here today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we will have, in addition to those books, Tina's contact information in today's show notes at sisterhoodofthesecond.com. Coming up, common women's health issues such as bladder control and pelvic pain can be treated with physical therapy. We'll explain right after this.
See where a grateful nation remembers its heroes, and where Thomas Jefferson came to relax. Where small town charm is just down the road from big outdoor adventures. Find peace and quiet, as well as the sounds of family fun. Destination Bedford is located where the Piedmont Plateau meets the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Where ordinary ends, Bedford begins.
Hello, I'm Mike Peterson. My wife Barbara and I own the Brambleton Frame Shop in Roanoke. We have a huge selection of frame moldings and matting, along with the expertise to enhance whatever you need framed. We frame certificates, photos, posters, and artwork, along with jerseys, medals, and other mementos. We frame anything. For all your framing needs, call 540-774-8063 or visit the Brambleton Frame Shop at 3226 Brambleton Avenue.
I'm going to be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids say they be looking for a thorny tree from me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
Once again from the Fox Radio Roanoke Studios, Sisterhood of the Second Act. Welcome back to Sisterhood of the Second Act. I'm Denise Allen Membrano. Francine Noël-Ford is a doctor of physical therapy, and she's been practicing since 1988. Francine opened her own practice in 2004 at Back to Basics Family Physical Therapy. She focuses on providing specialized care in general orthopedics with a special interest in women's health issues, including pelvic pain and incontinence. And she's here today to tell us how physical therapy can help with these issues. And when we first met, I was just blown away by the fact that these conditions can be treated with physical therapy. Thank you so much, Francine, for being with us. But I still, it just amazes me that, you know, physical therapy can work on this. Because we always think of it as, you know, recovering from an injury. So what led you to start dedicating part of your practice to treating women's health issues?
So as you mentioned, I've been a physical therapist for many years, and I was a board-certified orthopedic specialist for those many years as well. But it's not until after the birth of my 4 children, including twins, that I decided I really wanted to focus on this population. I felt it was underserved. People didn't know, like you mentioned, about what physical therapy could do to help women in general. And so that's when I wanted to specialize in that and open my practice.
So what types of health issues can be treated by physical therapy?
So if we talk about pelvic floor more specifically, typically you can either have issues that are due to pelvic floor weakness. So that would include things like incontinence, but also organ prolapse, like feeling like your bladder is falling out. Or the other aspect is that of pelvic floor tightness, and that would lead to conditions of vaginal pain with the tightness. But you can also have a combination of all.
Yeah. So many women suffer from incontinence, like you said, after birth of your children. So how can physical therapy specifically, let's talk about bladder control first.
Okay. So just like we would go for any other orthopedic condition, the physical therapist needs to do an assessment and kind of figure out exactly where your symptoms are coming from. Again, I mentioned it could be a combination of weakness and pain. If it is strictly weakness, one of the main things that we want to achieve first is making sure that you know how to engage those muscles of the pelvic floor the correct way in what we call in isolation. And just like you would get some exercises for your arm or shoulder, we would set you up on this home exercise program to start helping building the strength in your pelvic floor.
And we are talking with Francine Noël-Ford, and she is a doctor of physical therapy, and we're talking about using physical therapy to treat women's health issues. So you mentioned you send people home with an exercise or exercises. How long does it take to work?
Well, again, that's just the one portion of the exercise, the strengthening aspect of it. But we also will provide you with a lot of what we call behavioral strategies, tips to help you either control urges, but also prevent leaking during activities over time. So typically, the first session, again, you would have a lot of information depending on what your situation is, and making sure that you can do those exercises the correct way. And if you are strictly weakness, if you only have weakness that we need to address, Typically, you would have maybe 3-4 visit protocol to give you a progression of those strengthening. So that would be spread out over several weeks because we want to make sure that you are able to see some improvement. And as you can imagine, if you go work out at the gym, you're not going to bulk up, get those big muscles unless you've been working out for several weeks, right? So that's the strengthening aspect of it. But a lot of times your symptoms can improve before that, just by awareness, knowing what to do, not to do, and then giving you those tips and strategies to help you with the incontinence.
And these exercises are something that women would have to do ongoing, right? I mean, it's not something you just do and then stop.
So typically, you need to be very consistent in, those first initial months, probably 2 to 3 months, in order to change or rebalance your system. But after that, you're not going to have to do those exercises as often. And again, we teach you these strategies so that eventually we want to normalize your whole system to become a little bit more automatic again, and that you can perform during your day-to-day activities, so you don't even need to think about it, or you can incorporate those pelvic floor exercises with another workout that you're doing. So it's not something you'll have to do in addition eventually, but just kind of blend it in with your other activities.
Well,
for the long-term management.
That sounds great because you're doing this all without medication for the most part.
That's right. So, oftentimes people get medication for urgency or pain. We'll talk about pain later. But if we're able to help you control or improve your symptoms mechanically through improved function of those muscles, oftentimes people can get off the medication that they're prescribed, either for bladder issues or pain as well.
That's great. We are talking with Francine Noël-Ford, Doctor of Physical Therapy, about treating women's health issues with physical therapy. And you mentioned earlier pelvic pain. What do you mean by pelvic pain, and then how do you treat it with physical therapy?
Okay. So pelvic pain is that other category I mentioned where your pelvic floor muscles might be a little bit tight. So people are aware how you can have lower back pain in your muscles, tight, you have tenderness in your muscles, and maybe treat it with massage. So with vaginal pain, it can be vaginal pain with penetration, or it can be even vaginal burning sometimes. That can be due to the tightness of what we call in physical therapy trigger points in those pelvic floor muscles. And just like you can get massage for chronic back pain, we can teach you something that's called perineal massage and help you with those symptoms of pain as well.
And can this eradicate it, or is there always some level of pain? Does it depend?
That's right. It always depends on the severity. It depends on comorbidities, other external factors. If you have other chronic pain also in your back and hips, and sometimes neurological conditions or pathologies. So there's a lot of variation. But if you're a young person and you just had a child, typically you can be good for good.
What benefit are you seeing with people using physical therapy to treat these conditions, let's say over medication?
So I think what we do in physical therapy is try to help improve the function of those muscles again, and rebalance your systems as much as can be. And so we're addressing the cause of your symptoms, and we help to treat those causes. So that should help you in the long term versus medication, which maybe help you because you have a lot of pain, but it's not really addressing the cause of your symptoms. And so that's the difference or the benefit. And sometimes we're able to help people because we do other things that are called physical agents and massage to help with pain management as well that is not medicated. So we can help you in that situation as well.
So you help people get to the root of the issue with...
That's right. So our job again in that initial visit is to do a full assessment. And it's a little bit of a detective work. We want to try to figure out exactly where your symptoms are coming from a neuromusculoskeletal system point of view.
Through your practice, what kind of changes, or I should say, how have you seen physical therapy benefit women in this way?
Well, I think it helps to empower women that they have the control over their lives. That's the main thing that we want to achieve, is for women to feel confident in the situation of incontinence, that you don't need to feel embarrassed because you're going out and then you need to run to the bathroom or interrupt your travel. So we always work on improving function and quality of life for women. Or if you are in a relationship and you can't have intercourse, that's very important as well, to be able to feel like you can do that again and not be in so much pain. So that's our main goal, is to make sure people can return to activities that they've been wanting to do in a safe way, and learn things to prevent things from getting worse again in the future. So that's our main goal.
That's a great goal. And if someone out there wants to find a physical therapist such as yourself, but they're not in this area, what do you suggest they do? Who should they look for?
So the best thing to do is to do a search on the APTA website. So that's the American Physical Therapy Association. And just look for a physical therapist near you, but then make sure that they are either certified in women's health or pelvic health, or at least have some training in it. That would be the best.
Thank you so much, Francine. We really appreciate you being here today, and I'm sure a lot of people are as amazed as I was when I first heard about it. And we will have that APT website as well as your contact information on our website at sisterhoodofthesecond-act.com in today's show notes. And we'll be back to wrap up the show right after this.
In a region known for its beautiful mountain surroundings, our vibrant arts community makes the Allegheny Highlands a more colorful place to live and visit. Our passion for the arts is endless, and it's uniquely Allegheny.
Right there began the worst day of my life. I never saw the truck coming. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. Doctors, nurses, questions, pain. My wife called Crandall and Cott. Weeks passed and they stayed with me through surgeries, through rehab, and they obtained for me a settlement that was fair and took care of me and my family. Crandall and Cott were there for me on my worst day.
Because if you're injured, we care.
Call Crandall and Cott at 1-800-LAW-8000.
I'm going to be an oak tree.
I think I'll be a dogwood tree.
My kids said they be looking for a thorny tree from me.
With Evergreen, you can be a tree. Our biodegradable urn combines your ashes, natural soil additives, and a native tree of your choice. Be a tree and grow for tomorrow.
I want to be a tree.
Learn more at evergreenmemorialtrust.com.
I would like to thank Tina Renick and Francine Noël-Ford for joining us today. You can get a list of those books Tina mentioned during her interview on how to incorporate intuitive eating in your life, as well as learn more about treating women's health issues with physical therapy by going to our website at sisterhoodofthesecond-act.com. I'm Denise Allen Membranio. We'll see you next week for another edition of Sisterhood of the Second Act.